Pay attention to the woman in the driver's seat. She is 33-year-old Jennifer Caldwell. The man pumping gas into her car is Derek Caldwell, her estranged ex. Despite being locked in a bitter custody battle, they are supposedly on their way to reconcile and patch things up. Little did she know, Derek had no intention of making peace. This gas station footage is the last time she would be seen alive. The meeting on April 19th was not a spontaneous decision. It was the result of a 14-month separation that had grown increasingly hostile. Jennifer and Derek Caldwell, parents to a 6-year-old daughter named Brianna, had initially managed their split with an informal custody arrangement. However, the situation deteriorated when Jennifer filed for formal custody and child support in January 2024. She told her sister Paula that Derek's inconsistent employment made the informal arrangement unreliable and that she needed legal documentation to protect their daughter's interests. Derek saw the court filing as an aggressive and unnecessary action. Through February and March, the legal battle intensified. Court records show that Derek began to contest minor procedural issues, actions Jennifer's attorney described as delay tactics. Friends of Derek later reported to investigators that he had become fixated on what he called Jennifer's micromanagement, complaining that she demanded constant updates and proof of proper care during his time with Brianna. The conflict reached a critical point in early April when a family court issued a temporary order. It mandated a formal custody schedule and required Derek to pay $275 per month in child support. 3 days before the incident, Derek sent Jennifer a text message. It read, "We used to be able to talk. Can we just spend a few hours like adults and figure this out without everyone else in our business?" After some hesitation, Jennifer agreed to meet in a public place. Derek then proposed a specific location, Juniper Springs, a recreation area inside the vast Ocala National Forest, where they had once taken their daughter. He suggested the neutral, quiet setting might help them communicate calmly. Exhausted by the conflict, Jennifer agreed. The evidence is a digital video file, silent and objective. Sourced from a Marathon gas station on East Silver Springs Boulevard, the footage is time-stamped at 1:15 p.m. on Friday, April 19th. It shows Jennifer Caldwell's Toyota Camry pulling up to a pump. The video captures Derek Caldwell exiting from the passenger side of the vehicle. He handles the transaction and begins fueling the car while Jennifer remains visible in the driver's seat, and their interaction appears routine. There are no gestures of anger or signs of distress. The fueling process lasts for approximately 4 minutes. At 1:21 p.m., and the vehicle pulls away from the pump. It heads east on Silver Springs Boulevard, a direct route towards State Road 40 and the entrance to the Ocala National Forest. This recording, designated Image 4A in the case file, becomes the anchor point for the entire investigation. After the Camry left the gas station, the only way to track its movement was through digital data. Investigators obtained records for both Jennifer's and Derek's cell phones. The data showed the two devices traveling in tandem, pinging off cell towers along State Road 40 as the car moved steadily eastward, deeper into the remote stretches of Marion County. The digital trail confirmed their path into the Ocala National Forest. For nearly 40 minutes, the phones provided a clear, predictable route. Then the trail stopped. At 2:03 p.m., both Jennifer's and Derek's phones registered their final connection with the network. The ping came from a tower that provides coverage to the northwestern sector of the forest, an area known for its dense woods and sporadic service. After that moment, both devices went offline. They were no longer visible to the network. No calls could be received and no data could be transmitted. The digital footprint had vanished. 44 minutes later, at 2:47 p.m., Jennifer's sister Paula received a text message from Jennifer's phone. It read, "Need some time to think things through. Going to stay out here a while. Don't worry about me." Paula tried to call back immediately, but the call went straight to voicemail. She tried again twice more over the next hour with the same result. The message was meant to sound reassuring, but its timing presented a technical impossibility. How could a text message be sent from a phone that had been offline for nearly an hour? The text message from Jennifer's phone did not reassure her sister Paula. The phrasing, "need some time to think things through," was vague and unlike Jennifer's typically direct communication. Her immediate calls to the phone went directly to voicemail, deepening her unease. As the hours passed, her concerns solidified into alarm. The situation shifted from concerning to critical at 6 p.m. when Jennifer failed to arrive at her daughter's after-school program. When the program supervisor called Paula, who was listed as the emergency contact, the informal window for an explanation had closed. After picking up 6-year-old Brianna, Paula contacted Derek's mother, Linda, who confirmed she had not heard from either of them. With no other options, Paula drove to the Ocala Police Department. At 7:30 p.m., she officially filed a missing person report for Jennifer Caldwell. Initially, officers categorized the case as 2 missing adults who had possibly left the area voluntarily, citing the text message as the primary indicator of Jennifer's intent. But Paula insisted that her sister, a meticulous planner and devoted mother, would never abandon her child without a clear explanation or arrangement. She was adamant that the text message was completely out of character. Her persistence compelled authorities to look past the message and begin a preliminary search based on Jennifer's last known movements. The first patrol units were dispatched not to her home, but toward the dark, isolated roads of the Ocala National Forest. The initial search along the main paved roads of the Ocala National Forest yielded nothing, but deep inside the forest's unlit interior, a different search was underway. At approximately 11:45 p.m., a Marion County deputy on a routine patrol turned onto Forest Road 86, an unpaved track far from the main highway. His headlights caught something unusual: fresh tire impressions veering off the dirt road and onto an overgrown trail, a path used more by hunters than by casual drivers. The tracks suggested a standard sedan had recently forced its way into the dense undergrowth. Following protocol, the deputy drove his vehicle down the narrow trail for approximately 200 yards until the thick palmetto scrub made it impossible to continue. He proceeded on foot, using his flashlight to cut through the darkness. In a small, secluded clearing surrounded by a wall of vegetation, he found it: Jennifer Caldwell's silver Toyota Camry. The vehicle was silent and empty, the doors were unlocked, but the keys were gone. There were no immediate signs of a struggle inside or around the car. It appeared to have been parked and simply left behind. The deputy immediately secured the area and radioed for backup. By 10:30 p.m., additional units had arrived and a formal search perimeter was established. Canine units were brought to the scene to try and pick up a scent trail from the vehicle. But the forest at night is a difficult environment. The complete darkness, combined with the dense, tangled undergrowth, severely limited what the search teams could accomplish. They had found Jennifer's car, but the discovery only raised more urgent questions. Where were its occupants, and why was their vehicle abandoned in a place no one would ever find by accident?
At first light on Saturday, the search resumed with a new urgency. Canine units, no longer hindered by darkness, picked up a scent trail leading away from the abandoned Camry. The trail led them approximately 150 yards to the northeast into a dense patch of palmetto and oak hammock. There, in a shallow depression, searchers found what they were looking for. Concealed beneath a hastily arranged layer of palm fronds and forest debris was the body of Jennifer Caldwell. She was deceased. Crime scene investigators documented the area while the medical examiner conducted a preliminary assessment. The initial findings pointed to strangulation. Her clothing was intact and there was no immediate evidence of sexual assault. The official autopsy would later confirm the cause of death as asphyxiation due to manual strangulation. The examiner noted petechial hemorrhaging in her eyes and deep bruising on her neck, estimating the time of death between 2 p.m. and 4 p.m. on April 19, just hours after she was last seen alive. Significantly, there were no defensive wounds on her hands or arms, though abrasions on her knees suggested she might have been forced to the ground before the attack. Back at the car, investigators found Jennifer's purse. Her wallet, cash, and credit cards were all inside. Her phone was in the cup holder, powered off. The discovery of Jennifer's body marked a definitive and grim turning point. This was no longer a missing persons case, it was a homicide investigation, and there was only one suspect. With Jennifer's body recovered, the investigation pivoted entirely to finding one person, Derek Caldwell. A bolo, on the lookout, was issued, describing him as the prime suspect in a homicide investigation. While search teams continued to comb the forest on the assumption he might be lost or hiding nearby, a separate team of investigators executed a search warrant on his efficiency apartment in Silver Springs Shores. What they found inside shifted the case from a potential crime of passion to one of deliberate, calculated planning. On Derek's desktop computer, forensic analysts uncovered his internet search history from the week leading up to April 19. The queries were specific and chilling. He had searched for information on strangulation methods and the time required for a person to lose consciousness. He had researched areas within the Ocala National Forest known for limited or non-existent cell phone coverage. Other searches included queries on whether a body could be detected if concealed under vegetation and the typical timelines for law enforcement to find a missing person in a wilderness environment. He had, in effect, researched a manual for committing and getting away with murder. Investigators also found a handwritten note on a table dated April 18, the day before Jennifer's death. The note was not a plan, but a justification. In it, Derek described Jennifer as someone who will never stop and can't leave anything alone. The final sentences revealed his mindset. Some people think they can control everything and everyone. Eventually, someone has to show them that's not how it works. The digital searches provided the method, the note provided the motive. The evidence left no doubt about his intent, but the man himself was still missing. For 3 days, Derek Caldwell was a ghost. Search teams operated under the assumption that he was still somewhere within the vast, unforgiving terrain of the Ocala National Forest, either hiding or having succumbed to the elements. The search was extensive, but the forest was larger. The break in the case came not from a canine unit or a helicopter, but from a convenience store clerk in Weirsdale, a small community 25 miles southeast of the crime scene. On April 22, the clerk contacted authorities after seeing a news report and recognizing a man who had been in the store the morning before. Surveillance footage from the store confirmed it was Derek. He appeared disheveled but uninjured. He had purchased water, crackers, and a prepaid phone card, paying with cash before leaving on foot. The sighting proved that Derek had successfully navigated out of the forest and was now in a populated area. Law enforcement immediately shifted their entire search operation to Weirsdale, canvassing neighborhoods and following up on any potential leads. The final tip came from a resident who reported seeing a man matching Derek's description sleeping in a storage shed behind an abandoned house on the edge of town. At approximately 4 p.m. that afternoon, Marion County Sheriff's deputies and Ocala police officers surrounded the property. They found Derek inside the shed. He was taken into custody without resistance. Disoriented and dehydrated but otherwise unharmed, he was transported to the Marion County Jail. The manhunt was over. Once in custody, he refused to answer any questions and made only one request: for an attorney. Derek Caldwell was formally charged with first-degree murder. The state's case was built on the clear evidence of premeditation: the internet searches for strangulation methods, the handwritten note expressing his intent to show Jennifer her perceived control was wrong, and the selection of an isolated location with no cell phone coverage. The defense initially signaled they would argue the killing was not planned, but rather the result of a spontaneous argument that escalated tragically. However, faced with the overwhelming evidence, Derek avoided a trial. In September 2024, he accepted a plea agreement. The charge was reduced to second-degree murder in exchange for a sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. As part of the agreement, Derek provided a formal statement detailing his version of the events. He claimed the conversation in the forest turned into an argument over custody, alleging that Jennifer became critical and controlling. He described a moment where he felt she would never stop and that he just needed her to stop talking and stop controlling everything. According to his statement, he put his hands on her neck and applied pressure until she went silent. The court accepted the plea agreement, and Derek Caldwell was sentenced to life in prison. He was transferred to the Reception and Medical Center in Lake Butler, Florida, where he will become eligible for his first parole hearing in the year 2049. With the legal proceedings concluded, Jennifer's family was left to navigate the aftermath. Victim impact statements were read, but the most significant consequence was for Jennifer's 6-year-old daughter, Brianna, who was placed in the permanent guardianship of her aunt, Paula. The case was officially closed. The murder of Jennifer Caldwell became a regional cautionary tale about the lethal potential of domestic conflict, particularly when one party cannot accept a loss of control. For the family, the impact was catastrophic. Jennifer's daughter Brianna was left without a mother, placed in the care of an aunt who had to guide her through an unimaginable trauma. Jennifer's sister Paula issued a single statement emphasizing that Jennifer's actions had always been motivated by a desire to provide stability for her child and that her efforts to create legal boundaries were reasonable and necessary. In the public perception, the case highlighted how easily resentment can be reframed as righteous grievance. Psychological experts who analyzed the case noted that Derek's actions were consistent with narcissistic injury. He perceived Jennifer's legal and parenting requests not as practical measures, but as direct personal attacks. His written note and confession framed the murder as a corrective action, a final violent solution to a problem he believed she created. Ultimately, the case was solved and adjudicated, with Derek Caldwell imprisoned for life. Yet it remains an unsettling example in family law and domestic violence prevention circles of how premeditated violence can be masked by claims of a simple, escalating argument. The silent footage from the Marathon gas station serves as a permanent, haunting reminder of how a drive meant to find common ground can become a final journey.
Nope.
Up here we go!
Okay. NANI?!
Hey you. Okay.